Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Ignite MCN 2020 virtual. I know some of you are on the bus, and some of them are probably like lost somewhere. So we'll wait for you a little bit. But in the meantime, I wanted to, before I hand you over to your MC tonight, Nik Honeysett, I wanted to thank Axiell, who's our Ignite sponsor, and wanted to introduce you to Maria Wasig, who's a CEO and Executive Vice President of Axiell, and Samantha Diamond, VP of Digital Engagement at Axiell and CEO of Culture Connect.
Evening, everyone. My name is Maria Wasig, and I'm greeting you from Stockholm, Sweden. Part of Axiell Group, and we're very happy to support this digital forward event and the museum community in these challenging, but I also think hopefully inspirational times. And very glad that the MCN community can gather and exchange ideas. Change can also pivot us to new opportunities, and I must say that we see exciting new developments in the music tech sector. We know you need strong teams and strong solutions for your collections and the sharing of them. And I'm proud that all 350 of us on the Axiell team around the world can continue to support you. This year has certainly been a big change for all of us, and we've done whatever we can to support the community in a year that's been so different. We're getting through this together. We're glad to be here with you, and we're bringing in new colleagues. And I just want to introduce someone who recently joined me at Axiell. You already know her, Samantha Diamond.
Hi, thank you, Maria. Hi, everybody. Happy MCN 2020. I'm Samantha Diamond and calling you from New York City. And many of you know me as the founder and CEO of Culture Connect. And while we can't be together in person this year, the community strength is really profound and exactly what drew me to joining MCN and eventually joining the board, which I've been so proud to serve on the last 3 years. Big shout out to everyone for pulling off MCN's first virtual conference. And as Maria said, it has been a year of tremendous change for us all. In fact, Culture Connect has undergone its own transformation. We were just recently acquired by Axiell. Now, you may be wondering, why would a collections management company acquire an engagement platform, or why does this matter to me? Well, the sector now has its first full stack solution for a museum's end-to-end digital needs, more important than ever. So when your technology systems talk to each other, this is the lead. This is the leap needed to be sustainable and scalable and digitally forward. And really, that's what MCN is all about. So if you want to nerd out about this some more, join Culture Connect and Axiell at our office hours this week and throughout MCN. And we are so excited to be an MCN 2020 sponsor, and especially this event, Ignite. So let's get to it, and cheers. Thanks.
Cheers. Okay, is it all me now? Let's see if this works. Okay. Welcome to the main event, everyone. I see we have a lot of people here. This is fantastic. I wish this were the main event. My name is Nik Honeysett, and I'm welcoming you to Virtual Ignite. If you are new to Ignite, at this point, we would be in a rather large, noisy bar or nightclub, and I would be at least 3 drinks in. And who's to say I'm not? It's not that it's 5 o'clock somewhere. It is 2020 everywhere, and this is Ignite. So whatever your drink of choice, now is the time to pour one. Now, Ignite should be taken with a healthy dose of music. There is a playlist that went out on Twitter. If anybody's following the hashtag, Coven, our founder in chief, Coven Smith, has put a playlist together for you to enjoy Ignite at your leisure. I heartily recommend that you play that. So, Ignite. We are here to witness 9 museum professionals risk their reputation in front of, I think, about 300, what should be 300 drunk museum professionals, maybe more, but in this case, maybe not, but attempting to inspire, provoke, incite, and challenge you with 20 slides of 15 seconds per slide, totaling 5 minutes. Make no mistake, Ignite is brutal. It is not a rambling 20-minute diatribe. It is the precision engineering of podium presenting. And these precision engineers have been working all summer to perfect their 5 minutes of MCM fame. So normally my instructions to you would be to hoot and holler and laugh and ooh and ah to boost the Igniters as they struggle to keep up with their advancing slideshows or wait for their struggling slideshows to catch up with them. But we are virtually constrained and we are Zoom webinar challenged. So as the Igniters dazzle you with their brilliance and thought provocation, please send your love and support in the chat. So what is my role? Well, I am the warm-up act. I'm going to give you a little taster of a cheesy metaphor that I've chosen to soften the crowd and get you ready for Ignite. This is a little teaser. See if you can figure out the theme. Okay, if you guessed it, yes, it's the Wizard of Oz. This is the Museum Computer Network presentation theatrical themed Ignite 2020. Let's just hear that. Love it. So we have some theatrical inspiration for you as the Igniters get ready themselves to present to you. For those of you not familiar with MCN and Ignite, did you know that MCN and Ignite have been referenced many times in famous movies? No? Ladies and gentlemen, museum digerati of all ages, I present to you MCN in the movies. And you're going to have to guess the quotes from this movie, Tale of Two Cities. Hashtag Ignite 2020 is a far, far better thing that I do than I have ever done. It is a far, far better MCN 2020 virtual that I go to than I have ever known. Okay, you get the picture? Okay, any guesses? You had me at Ignite. Any guesses? I see Ignite people. This is an easy one. Yo, Ignite. Top Gun fans. I feel the need for Ignite. I'm very proud of this one. I'm going to do the accent. Mama always said Ignite was like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. And I spent a lot of time on this one to tee up this theme. MCNers, I have a feeling we're not in Baltimore anymore. Yes, because of this, we are not in Baltimore. Boo, hiss. But that happened, and then these people happened. The good people from the South, to get rid of the wicked, bad person from the West, who apparently, and I hope, is melting as we speak and doesn't look any better or worse green as he does as orange. So here we are, a magical MCN virtual, and I'm about to introduce to you the MCN Igniters. It is my great pleasure to introduce your Ignite presenters for this evening. We're here to see Ignite, the wonderful Ignite of MCN. This took me a long time to Photoshop, so please acknowledge that. So, and this is the order that you're going to see presenters. First up is Kyle. Audience engagement is your goal, not theirs. Followed by Sandy Goldberg. Welcome to my 2D world. Then we have Michael Riordan, Communities of Imagination and Learning. And then we have two Ignite presentations from pairings. We have Meredith Steinfels and Yvonne Lee, Your Data Are Probably Racist. We have Garrett Graddy-Lovelace and Virginia Poundstone, Future Wisdom via Metadata. Tim Boutelle, Kraftwerk and Kraftwerk. And then bringing us home will be Jeremy Monroe. They will save us if we let them. And so, ladies and gentlemen, as I don the man behind the curtain, coming up now is Audience Engagement is Your Goal, Not Theirs by Kyle Bowen. Over to you, Kyle.
Okay, and go. Hi, MCN. I'm Kyle Bowen, principal at Super Helpful. And I'm here, and I'm not at all nervous, to remind you that audience engagement is your goal, not theirs. In 1942, researchers set out to understand how they could decrease the number of planes being shot down by enemy fire during bombing raids. These researchers looked at returning planes, and they studied where they were being hit by enemy fire and concluded that the planes needed to be strengthened around the wings, the tail, and the guts in the middle. Abraham Wald, a mathematician, had a different approach. Rather than study planes that had successfully returned, he decided to look at planes that never made it back from their missions. So Wald goes and studies the wreckage of these planes, and he finds that, in fact, the planes that were being shot down were those that had suffered damage to the propellers, the nose, and this thingy spot down here between the wings and the tail, which I'm told is a fuselage, but I prefer thingy spot. But you see the problem here. The researchers have been looking at the wrong sample. They were studying survivors. They came to exactly the wrong conclusion about how to improve aircraft survivability. In 2020, a team of museum professionals set out to understand how they could increase the number of people who engage with their museum. Whatever engagement means, that's a different talk. Evaluators looked at the experiential and cognitive impact of the museum's offerings on visitors, and they found that many visitors were indeed having experiences and their cognition was impacted. And then folks over in marketing and development ran their own surveys, and they found that visitors were sometimes put off by the cost and availability of parking. And then over in visitor services, they ran surveys and found that some visitors complained about interactions with rude staff, and sometimes they had to wait in long lines. And elsewhere, other researchers were surveying museum goers to gauge how they would feel if the museum expressed a point of view about issues relevant to their communities. Is that okay? Can we do that? The museum prided itself on being data-driven, so everyone came together and shared what they learned. They produced a map of pain points, which was really messy, but they followed the data, and they introduced a free parking day. And they invested in staff niceness training, and they reposted another museum's post about social justice on Facebook. But outside the walls of the museum, other researchers took a different, newer approach. So new, in fact, that the researchers themselves are still trying to decide on a name for the work that they're doing. Some of them call it problem-based research. Others prefer opportunity research or foundational research. Lately, I've been really fond of the term un-user research or un-visitor research, because museums today are a lot like those early researchers who were trying to understand aircraft survivability. Museums look at existing audiences, and existing audiences are survivors. They're the ones who are available. They're the ones who overcame all the obstacles and slings and arrows to actually make it through the door, or to renew their membership, or make a donation, or take the satisfaction survey. We want to know if we're engaging audiences, but do people want to be engaged? Aren't they on their own missions? And isn't the museum just one of many ways they can make progress toward their goals? Outside the walls of your museum, there are researchers, call them what you will, who are not prioritizing visitor satisfaction or preferences or co-creation. These researchers are studying how people become users, how they decide how to spend their time, what motivates them, what they do to realize their goals, whether they're engaging with a museum or not. And just to thoroughly shake up our metaphors here, I want you to consider whether the museums that pursue this kind of understanding may be the ones that are most likely to return to base, not only having survived, but having completed their own missions. Thank you.
Woo! Thank you, Kyle. Remote applause everywhere.
I feel that.
You feel the love?
Yes, very much so.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right, stop share.
Okay. Next up, we have the man behind the curtain telling you that it is Sandy Goldberg. Welcome to my 2D world.
Okay.
Sandy, over to you.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen now. Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to pause a moment here before I press begin. So I just want to imagine everybody's friendly faces out there. And I want to say that this is a little bit more of a personal story, maybe not so professional, but here we go. Here at MCN, we talk so much about user experience. It's the basis of so many sessions that you've sat in on and watched. And right now, of course, your experience here is you're viewing me and all of your experiences on a screen. So I'm asking you, does seeing me and all of your colleagues in all your Zoom meetings look different from seeing them in real life? Well, not to me. Welcome to my two-dimensional world. Let me explain. When I first saw that this year's prompt for Ignite was creative inspiration, I decided it was time for me to finally come clean about a secret, because here at MCN, we're all friends, right? So here goes. I have never had three-dimensional vision. I was born with vision in only one eye, just like Art Spiegelman describes in his cartoon here. I wear a contact lens in my good eye, so I see in a sort of corrected tunnel in front of half of my face. So my vision has always been two-dimensional. And now with so many of everyone's world existing in two dimensions on screens, I'm saying that my comfort with two-dimensionality and is an expertise. Here's the big irony. For decades, my entire career has been helping others see in museums. Here's a shot from my website. So I'm a go-to person for creating interpretive content, like audio tours and multimedia and all that. And in visitor surveys, and when I'm spying here on TripAdvisors, I see that users often say that the content has opened their eyes, which is kind of crazy. And I've not talked about my two-dimensional vision before. I thought it would seem somehow disqualifying, but I think seeing this way has been advantageous. As a kid, it's the way I first discovered art, like this Egyptian and medieval images I saw in library books. I thought, oh, the beautiful flatness. I felt so at home. And then discovering wonderfully flat modern art was a revelation. Here was an entirely two-dimensional world. This was for me. Another completely different advantage of this kind of vision is that I can't get a driver's license. Yes, it's an advantage. So I've always had to live where it's really walkable. That's a good thing. Walking is my main transportation, and walking in maybe an hour or more to get somewhere is really no big deal for me. So in the early days of quarantine last spring, when I saw so many people online, like here, talking about walking being some new activity that they discovered, I thought this was hilarious. So I decided I wanted to take walking and make that a two-dimensional experience. It was a way to make a connection with another part of my life that I don't share with my museum colleagues. It's actually that I have a pretty extensive history as an artist, and I have had a lot of solo exhibitions and project grants. And my project-based exhibitions often explore the ridiculous. Contradictions, absurdities fascinate me. So here's my creative inspiration, like MCN was asking for. For each step from a given walk, I make a strip on a sheet of graph paper. The movement of my hand on the sheet of paper mimics my foot taking a walk ahead in space. Making each walk on paper takes just about the same amount of time as the walk did, and that's intentional, so that each walk on paper is a two-dimensional expression of time. And making them is a waste of time, a ridiculous activity. And I have notebooks full of these things now. I don't think they're drawings, it's just math. I like the way that they look wonky and handmade. And to take the absurdity to another level, my new goal is to have the world's most boring Instagram account. It's the opposite of what Instagram is for. So here's an offer for all of you. If any of you are feeling overstressed or zoomed out and you need a gift of time, maybe an extra hour or two, just email me with the number of steps or walk you've taken and the date. And I'll mark your walk for you and send it to you. It's some of that museum empathy that we all like to talk about. And you'll receive something that's really, truly worthless. A gift of something tactile that fits the absurdity of these times. Of course, the bigger conference appropriate lesson here is embrace your unique weakness as a strength. That's what it's your superpower. That's what a curator from the Van Gogh Museum said in an NPR profile about me last summer. You can find the NPR piece by Googling the phrase feckless chicken. That phrase seems to just perfectly fit the absurdity of these times. Thank you.
That was awesome. Thank you, Sandy. That you need to, you're going to be, no, you're going to be really busy. There's a lot of people are going to send you.
Look, I've got my pens, A
lot of people are going to send you something right there. Okay, so next up we have Michael Riordan, Communities of Imagination and Learning. Michael, are you at the ready?
I am.
Excellent. Over to you.
Or not. I'm still viewing. Where is this at? Interesting. All right.
Perfect.
Just give me one more. There you go. Okay, so can you see me? You guys can see me, right?
All good. Yep.
Cool. All right. So before I start, I want to apologize in advance to the closed captionist because unlike Sandy's very methodical presentation, I grew up in the Northeast and this is going to fly. So if you guys are ready, then indeed we will begin. Or not. Everybody. There we go. Okay, so this presentation is all about GLAM institutions, galleries, libraries, archives, and museums, but seen through the lens of an educator in the strangest of all years, hence the GLAM cat, by the way, but perhaps also through the lens that will help to reveal more of their inherent value in the years ahead. So back in spring, as the pandemic settled in, I began an inquiry into its impacts on nonprofits, starting to look at a lot at cultural institutions. And shortly after, with the death of George Floyd, having asking much more about cultural narratives and what a cultural institution really was. So I'm a why guy. So I asked, why do GLAM institutions even exist? And Wikipedia answered, quote, the purpose of a modern museum is to collect, preserve, interpret, and display objects of artistic, cultural, and scientific significance for the education of the public. So if GLAMs are educational institutions, what kind are they? Well, the classic model is a sage on the stage. Experts speak, students listen. Galleries and museums are this model. Curators and historians arrange, interpret, and present to their intended audience as an exhibition is a lesson plan. The alternate model, the guide at the side, is more learner-centered. And here the learner leads and the expert mentors. Libraries and archives echo this model. The collections they build and manage are often activated by agents outside. But there's a difference between education and learning. As the phrase goes, education happens to you and learning happens through you. Both models can be highly effective, but the trend in education for decades has been learner-centered. This trend is echoed across industries. Listening, embracing empathy leads to great results. It's all about meeting individuals where they are at, not where you want them to be, not where you wish they were. This means dropping assumptions and adapting to what what you would do and or what you do and how you do it. Embrace the changes. So the goal is to make it accessible, really accessible. Envision the most challenging person to reach and realize the changes you make to reach them will enable you to reach many, many more. As a teacher, this was sometimes challenging, but the reward was always worth the time. So where to begin? Well, rethink how collections are accessed internally and externally. It should be easy, intuitive, no finding aids, no clunky website, browse over search, discovery over drudgery. So to reach new audiences while also deepening the connections with the ones you have, flip those education models. Galleries and museums become guides at the side. Libraries and archives become sages on the stage. So for example, for museums and galleries, bring in the folks from the community to curate, not the local artist or the well-known leader. Start with John the barber or your neighbor's youngest kid and have them teach you how they make the connections, collections, the values they see, the metadata that you might be missing. Make reproductions of selected works, maybe those that John picked, and place them in the community as a scavenger hunt with a social media tie-in, or maybe just an Instagram takeover, or on the walls of local businesses, or maybe better, on site of the many empty commercial real estate sites left empty by this pandemic. Then listen to what worked and better what didn't. Take suggestions, let the community guide you, and the value of connections of your collections only goes up the more they're accessed. The community is full of curators. Listen to their stories. For archives, it's all about proactively showing the collection, telling the stories, curating the exhibitions as lesson plans to teach and learn with the community, or maybe just to project assets on the walls outside, but to see and be seen within the context of the community. Libraries are already there, right? But they need to be heard. They need to be heard louder to showcase their content outside the context of their walls, creating exhibitions and spaces, share with partners big and small, including those little homespun shared library boxes in your neighborhood. Host open readings of passages and books, then record and share the voices of those who read them, then listen and learn, and share those stories of those who were impacted and those that they didn't. Libraries may be in the best position to do this kind of work. But again, you will learn more from listening in all its forms than from nearly any other activity. As a career educator, I learn more from my students than I ever expected. As a result, I have become a better teacher, a better mentor, a better friend, a better leader in my community. The key is to play and to play with purpose. Your purpose is to educate. Wikipedia said so, after all. Great education feels a lot like a vacation, inspiring, interesting, fun, and you always want to get a little more before you have to go back to work. So play with new playmates. The newer, the better. The patrons of your past will remain, but your future needs the patrons you don't have. The butcher, the baker, the local troublemaker. Patrons not as customers, funders, or visitors, but as partners in teaching and learning. The deeper you connect with communities, the more value you bring, the more value they bring, the more teaching and learning enabled, and the more opportunities everyone will have to make valuable connections with you and one another. Just imagine the possibilities.
Nope, my dog applauding you as well there, Michael. Wonderful, that was fantastic. And now you need to go and read all the fantastic comments about that. Okay, so next up we have, got to do my thing. Okay, next up we have this is a new one for us. We have Meredith, Steinfels, and Yvonne Lee talking about your data are probably racist. Over to you.
All right. I'm going to remember to click share computer sound this time.
Yes.
1 second while I pull up my PowerPoint, Yvonne, and I would have normally loved to share this on a stage. There is a moment where you get to yell. And so even if you are all at home by yourself, we encourage you to yell the refrain. And in addition, if you haven't already done so, We also encourage you to do gallery view because there may or may not be a performance by Yvonne. So I'm going to mute myself. I'm going to stop my video and I will present to you your data are probably racist.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Your Data Are Probably Racist. I'm your host, Jung Walsh. Tonight's special episode is geared towards recognizing the telltale signs that your data are probably racist.
Let's use this very rigid enterprise software to catalog our collections data.
Your data are probably racist.
I mean, most of us use enterprise software, so let's start off with acknowledging that.
Do you know how your data are encoded? Is it Latin 1? It's Latin 1, isn't it? Yeah, your data are probably racist. Data can't be racist. Data's facts. And facts are facts.
Your data are probably racist.
Our collection, which encompasses nearly all temporalities and multitudes of cultures, is cataloged solely by white registrars and scholars. Well, what difference does it make?
Your data are probably racist.
Oh, we've checked the registry. These objects weren't on there. How about we split the difference and loan out these items long term?
Your data is probably racist.
Hiring is a meritocracy. It's not our fault that the qualified applicants were all white. Or maybe there's a leaky pipeline? Oh, it's definitely a leaky pipeline.
Your data are probably racist.
As is your institution. Dear Lord, you should probably burn it down. And maybe rethink your recruiting practices and what qualified means. The data has to be clean. We don't want our dirty data exposed to the public.
Your data are probably racist.
Cataloging should be standardized across all artists and cultures. It's equal treatment, and that way it's fair. Everybody gets the same universal process.
Your data are probably racist.
Sure, our geographic data contains settler colonialist terms and maps. But what else are we going to do?
Your data are probably racist.
Nah, we don't regularly update or audit our thesaurus. Doesn't everybody use the same controlled vocabularies and subject headings?
Your data are probably racist.
No. We don't make space for traditional knowledge, terms, practices, or workflows. I mean, how would we even do that? Who does that?
Your data is probably a racist.
We urge our viewers tonight to call out these signs when and where they see them. Remember, nothing about us without us. And if you find yourself feeling uncomfortable from any of the statements made this evening, consider leaning into the discomfort. This concludes our special edition of Your Data Are Probably Racist.
I think, Yvonne, your wig is a big hit there.
Good night.
Oh, cut you off too soon then. Okay, that was fantastic. Love the XML tags from Chad in the chat there. Okay, next up, we have another pair of panelists, Future Wisdom via Metadata from Garrett, Graddy-Lovelace, and Virginia Poundstone.
Are you all able to see the screen?
Yes, indeed.
All right.
Hello, good people.
Get ready. In 5 minutes, we will be time traveling across millennia of cultural heritage. So buckle up.
Quipus, meaning knots in Quechua, are intricate knotted systems that served as communication and accounting tools for 4 millennia throughout the Andes.
The story we will tell today is about this particular quipu. It begins in the 15th century in the heart of the vast Incan Empire, Tahuantinsuyo. Chasquis, or messengers, ran quipus like this one from town to town, delivering news of agriculture, climate, astrology, labor, and finance.
Quipu Camayocs were the messengers that were trained in the complex mathematical grammar of quipus. In short, vast amounts of data crossing space and time in deceptively simple, highly portable string bundles. In addition to administrative info, quipus carried agroecological and cosmological knowledge across the land, helping inform ceremonies for planting and offerings to Pachamama, the divine feminine manifesting in earth and life.
During the same time period in Europe, likely ancestors of Garrett and mine suffered the horrors of the bubonic plague, even as our rulers sought to expand their empires by crusading, plundering, and exploring new lands to conquer.
The next generation of crusaders crossed the Atlantic, thirsting for gold and silver. The Spaniards brought disease and advanced weaponry to Tahuantinsuyo and quickly conquered the Incan Empire.
They recognized the power of these cryptic knots and destroyed nearly all quipus. Only a few hundred remain. This quipu escaped the pyre and lay abandoned at Machu Picchu for centuries.
Cut to 1911, when Yale prof. Hiram Bingham III and his team ventured into high altitude Peru, seeking archaeological treasures. Led by local farmers and youth who knew the ruins, the expedition found what it was looking for, the stones of overgrown Machu Picchu. They excavated thousands of artifacts, including ceramics, jewelry, textiles, stone tools, and skeletons.
Bingham negotiated an agreement with the Peruvian government to borrow 46,332 objects and fragments for study. They were packed into 93 crates and carried out of the high mountains amid local protests in Cusco and then again at the Mollendo port, trying to stop the looting.
Bingham returned in 1912 and 1915 with more funding to obtain more artifacts and to write up a National Geographic feature. He dismissed his promise to return the artifacts to Peru and went to fight in World War I. So this quipu sat at Yale's Peabody Museum of Natural History for the next century as a specimen of research, enduring fires, floods, dust, basements, and bureaucracy.
Cut to the 21st century, Machu Picchu becomes a tourist boom. It becomes one of the 7 wonders of the world, one of the new 7 wonders of the world.
The internet unfurls and explodes.
Mumblings grow among Peruvian activists, scholars, politicians, and expats that Yale never returned the loan. Peru makes the formal request for their return.
Yale stalls.
Peru sues.
Yale alumni add pressure.
The glory of the story of discovery begins to tarnish.
A deal is made for a collaborative museum permanent exhibition located at a former Incan palace, Pucamarca.
Yale repatriates a few hundred of the most intact objects, human remains included.
So this quipu is flown back to the Southern Hemisphere.
Which brings us to today. While this quipu now lives at the Museo Museo Casa Concha in Cusco, Peru, there are digital versions of many cupus circulating the web.
Meanwhile, the digital metadata on these ancient analog data sets continues to evolve.
Bingham called quipus decimal accounting systems to measure yields, taxes, and warfare. They've been called abacuses for counting or mnemonic devices.
But research with Quechua elders shows they are also narrative devices and that they tell who made the quipu and in what context. So very large quipus aggregated longitudinal data collected over time. So it seems these quipus encompass metadata about their own data.
They are now recognized as proto-computers, holding three-dimensional binary code language. Current museum metadata on quipus offers glimpses of their complexity, of their complex in entirety, but all of this metadata remains very messy because it's necessarily incomplete, because so little is still known.
So what if quipu metadata included why 4 millennia of use and knowledge of them was severed so abruptly in the violent colonial encounter? What if the metadata included the indigenous movements mobilizing to recall and readapt quipu-based ways of knowing today?
Is there room for dialogue in metadata? Room for different worldviews? Who gets to write the metadata?
Can the taxonomy and metadata of digital cultural objects trace and transcend lines of plunder and erasure, moving from a colonialist doctrine of discovery to a realm of recovery, a recovery of the latent metaphysics of metadata?
Whose knowledge does a digital object hold?
Can the seeds of future wisdom be sown in dialogic metadata, in anti-racist metadata? And if so, how?
Let's think through this together.
Do it.
Woo!
Please join us. If you can, next Thursday, we'll be kind of expanding some of this with a workshop, but in general, reach out to us.
Thank you very much. And I'd say in general, reach out to all the Igniters that you show some love on Twitter. Okay, next up, Kraftwerk and Kraftwerk. Tim, are you good to go?
I think I am.
Okay, it's all yours.
So I'm excited to be here. This is my first MCN. I'm nervous to be in front of all of you, especially in the form of this sort of strange session on creative inspiration and making my introduction this way. So I figured I'd start with the most controversial thing I could think of in a virtual room full of museum people, the ICOM definition of a museum. You're all muted for me, but I'm imagining some cheering, maybe some booing. This gets people worked up. I think everyone latched onto different parts of this somewhat ungainly definition. There are 99 words, and each one seems to have excited or upset somebody. But one word jumped out to me in particular: polyphonic, multiple voiced. Now, full disclosure, I like this, and I respond to it as an aspiration for cultural institutions. And then I realized I'd really only seen that word in one place before, on the front panel of a synthesizer. Now, I spend most of my time doing one of two things. I'm developing interactive media for exhibits, or I'm playing keyboards. So this got me thinking that there may be more of a connection than I'd previously thought. As a keyboard player, I resisted synths for a long time because they intimidated me. But I've recently given in and started stacking up more and more of them in sort of a rickety tower. I feel like this might be the kind of nerdy crowd where I should disclose I'm still a novice at synthesis. So forgive me if I get a few things a little bit wrong. It's just a metaphor. Anyway, the polyphonic thing got me thinking. Are there other ways the vocabulary of synthesis might provide some useful inspiration for museums and for exhibits? If we zoom out, how else could this help us think and talk about our work? So I started looking. And I found this quote I think speaks to how a lot of us might think about our work. It's certainly more than a technological activity, although we use electronic technology as a design tool. But I wouldn't call it an artistic activity. We're tool makers. Now, as you probably guessed, this isn't about museums at all. It's about synthesizers. It's a quote from synth pioneer Bob Moog. It looks like Moog, but someone's going to correct me in the chat if I say Moog. Anyways, this made me think maybe I was onto something. So if there's anything to the connection, and I hope there is, what's a synth really have to tell us about museums or about exhibits? Synthesizers with all their knobs are at their heart an admission that raw information can be shaped, modulated, and processed to say different things, strike different tones, and have different effects on people. Raw unprocessed data is at the core of it, but it's not everything, and frankly, it's not all that interesting on its own. Synths are machines for turning data into experiences, just like exhibits are. The way we set all of these parameters is everything to what that experience actually is. So let's look at a couple of the parameters on this synth, just by way of example. Let's start with polyphony, where I began. It means multiple voices can speak at once, instead of interrupting each other. Now, of course, that can be a little bit ungainly and complex, and sometimes messy and ugly, but sometimes it's harmonic. The biggest knob on this synth right in front of me is the filter, and its effect is all important. It decides what information gets through and what doesn't. It's literally labeled cutoff. Any of us act as filters in our institutions, and we need to use the power of that knob thoughtfully. Think about what we're amplifying and what we're cutting off to do so. Another section, common to just about every synth, is the attack, sustain, decay, and release envelope. As we design museum experiences, how can we use these controls? Attack might be a way of thinking about how visitors start their experience. Does it hit them all at once? Or you adjust it and ease them into things? Decay is how you settle into the experience, how you sort of get in the flow. Sustain is a way of thinking about how we keep visitors' attention and interest, and how intense that experience is. And release, how do we send them off? Does their encounter with your museum end abruptly? Does it fade gently? Or does it overstay its welcome? And maybe the tightest relationship to some museums I've been in is this knob, simply labeled noise. It sounds like a bad thing, but a little bit can actually be great, as any of you who have heard the din of an active children's museum gallery can attest. It's interesting thinking, how can we turn that knob and let in a little noise into our museums on purpose, even while our curators are mostly concerned with the signal? So, I don't know if I have many conclusions to point to from this, but maybe a bit of new vocabulary for thinking about some of our work. The metaphor isn't perfect, but even so, I want to close out with a few lessons from taking synths out in public and playing them for people. The danger of a synth that's really cool and futuristic today is how it'll sound and how cheesy it'll be when you listen back in the future. It's easy to get painfully out of date in a hurry, something we've probably all seen and maybe done in our museums. Another lesson that applies equally to synths and to museums, technology is not always the right tool. Sometimes you've got to step aside and play tambourine. But in conclusion, the most complex, interesting creations take work and experimentation to get something complex enough, interesting enough, and dynamic enough, whether you're talking about synths or museums. The ultimate judge is how our work sits in the mix and how it hits an audience. Eventually, you've got to stop twiddling, make something, and try it out.
Nice job, Tim. That was fantastic. You should check the comments. That was really cool. And I apologize. I had a Zoom problem there. You'd think I'd know how to use Zoom, given what my job is. Okay, so last but not by no means least is Jeremy Monroe. He's going to bring us home with "They Will Save Us If We Let Them."
All right, folks can hear me and presentation is up, yes?
Yes, it is.
Awesome. And so I'm gonna start this off in true Ignite fashion by doing a shot of vodka and chasing it with this margarita. All right, let's do this. They will save us if we let them. Vine, TikTok, the teens, community. I'm Jeremy Monroe, database administrator, Smithsonian National Museum of African Art. Please don't tell my museum about this. So my presentation is basically about teens downloading Vines and putting them on YouTube and whether or not that's community archiving. I also am indeed the worst presenter on this Ignite, but the third coolest.
It is Wednesday, my dudes.
So if you've never seen a Vine before, that's a Vine. So what exactly is a Vine? Well, it's a defunct short-form video website, 6 to 7 seconds long, usually comedic, popular with the teens, and it existed as a platform from 2012 to 2016. Rest in peace, please come back, I'm begging you. So Vine went out of business after being bought by Twitter, who put the site into an archive state, which didn't last. So the community and the teens rose into action, because corporate archiving is obviously never really actually archiving, right? And so the community created all these Vine compilations on YouTube. They just downloaded all the Vines and put them on YouTube with titles like Vines I Quote Every Day, Vines That Keep Me From Ending It All, and Vines That Cared For Me When No One Else Did. Which, if you had any question of like, how do you know it's teens, this is how you know. Only teens do titles like these. And Vines transcended the platform, becoming quotable cultural touchstones, right? There was like famous Vines like, I could have dropped my croissant, or road work ahead. Yeah, I sure hope it does. That have just become like oral jokes to a lot of youth culture. Here's another Vine.
So basically, what I was thinking of was, oh fuck, I can't believe you've done this.
An extremely classic Vine, usually just translated as, fuck, I can't believe you've done this. There was then Vine parties, which was a brief fad where people would show up dressed as acting out their favorite Vines. On the left, the Vine we just watched. On the right, a man at a party dressed up as the same Vine. I did a lot of work to get the specific frame of them doing the same thing, by the way. And so then we have TikTok, which a lot of people are familiar with now, which is up to 60 seconds long in video and has a suite of crazy editing tools. The duet feature is really neat. It's got more influencers. It's definitely like a middle ground between Instagram and Vine, for sure. And so it didn't take long for users to start crossing historical Vines with TikTok's editing and length, right? So Vine created the visual language and the comedic structure and the edits. It became TikTok's video language and internet humor in general that you probably don't even are aware of in what you see. And the YouTube compilations caught up too. TikToks that radiate Vine energy being like a great one, where we know like clearly the people on TikTok are thinking about Vine and how they're producing content that's illustrated through these titles. And so some analysis, right? So Vine was archived through, the teens putting shit on YouTube. Vines transcended their video origins into oral jokes and performance, reinscribing them in the youth culture, and that reinscribing them consistently, which we know because teens today were extremely young in Vine's heyday, and their only relationship to Vine is the YouTube compilations. They were like children, young children. And so this is proof of success of the community archiving project. Not only did it preserve it for the people who knew it, but it preserved it for the next generation. And so Vine and TikTok are also diverse platforms, but they aren't perfect. There's a lot of like edgelord trash on there. However, they also contain clearly many teens working through gender and identity. And TikTok has a really strong anti-racist ACAB bent, all cops are bastards. Museums put effort and resources to make systems that house data and knowledge, yet with just raw passion, the Vine community saved their works for now by throwing them on YouTube. And museums like that passion from our communities. And it's also really fucking simple. Like, we have all this really complicated stuff, and I don't even understand it, and it's my job. Museums are important to some people, right? But museums are not important to the general public. They don't instill passion present in any small internet community. And museums do not create community, they just tell community what their story is. Museums need to understand how communities are made. They don't exist to be listened to, don't exist to be talked at. Communities are dynamic, ever-changing, and it's not just being part of the process, they have to be the fucking process. And so, anyway, just because you aren't experienced doesn't mean you're not qualified. Solidarity with folks laid off because of decades of trying to run these cultural organizations like businesses. You don't need to manage burnout. Your museum systems are the problem, and you should probably organize and fix them. Memes forever. You should log off. I never will. You're not being paid for extra work. Fuck colonialism and imperialism and racist gatekeeping. You should unionize museum, attend the unionizing session, talk with your coworkers. That's just how it all begins. And I'll shut up now with former governor of New Jersey, Chris Christie.
No off-topic questions because I don't want to. No, no, permission denied. That's an off-topic questions. Next, you have been stopped.
Thank you.
I'm so sad that that wasn't live in a huge bar with Jeremy, like you say in the chat, leading the revolution. Nice job, Jeremy. Thank you so much. Thank you to all the panelists. That was spectacular. What do I have to say? We're almost at time. I can't believe that we actually got this on time with a couple of minutes to spare. Little bit of music. Okay, I want to thank the Igniters. Some of you were MCN folks returning, some of you were new folks coming. You're now part of the MCN community. Please come back again. I'm really hoping to see everyone in IRL next year. We can beat this thing. And I'll leave you with one more quote. Carpe diem, seize the day, MCNers, make museums extraordinary, and have a great conference. I've been Nik Honeysett. Thanks to the panelists. Show your love on Twitter, and we'll be seeing you soon.